Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cosmic Heartist. My name is Karina and I'm your host. And today we have another month overview episode with Thea. We had one in September. I feel like you guys enjoyed that. So we're bringing it back to you for October, giving you a little bit of an idea of what's going on in the cosmos. How can we harness that magic? How can we use it in a very practical and grounded way? But before that, hi Thea, would you like to reintroduce yourself and give us 3 words for September?
Wow, that's a lot. But hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in with us again for October. It's quite a dynamic month. Thea here. You can call me TLC, also Integrative Astrologer, Soul, Soil, and Cosmic Garden Tender. 3 words for September. What can I say? For me, what came out really loud was fortifying boundaries, making space for all the revelations. Oh my gosh, that's not 3 words. Probably fortifying boundaries.
It's okay. Do all the words you want.
um, Gosh, okay, so probably themes because words are feeling so Saturnian for me right now.
Go with
Um,
these.
so it was clarifying, fortifying boundaries, making space for my feelings, and refining values were the top 3 themes that were loud for me in September. How about you? Goodness, what a challenge.
Hmm. So what's coming back to me from September is how we were talking about building a home for our emotions. That has been loud all month. And every time I think about emotions and building a home for my emotions, I come back to like us talking about it, which is one of the reasons why I love doing these episodes with you, right? Or even when we were doing practical cosmic magic, because
Yeah.
it stays as a reminder in our mind once we like say it out loud one time. So, building a home for emotions has been very real. That's a theme. Another theme is coming into right relationship with self.
Mhm.
Because without being in right relationship with self, um, nothing else really works. And I guess we'll get into it more as we go through the episode.
Mm,
And the last one is the importance of expression.
mm, mm.
Because, yeah, self-explanatory. So those are the themes that I've felt into in September, and I thought that this month to kind of just give us a primer of what's going on before we start talking about what's going to be happening with Cosmos, we can start
Mhm,
by talking about where the planets are as we begin the month,
mhm,
and then we'll move through some of the more significant movements. When I say more significant, we're mostly talking about conjunctions, which means planets are beside each other. We're talking about squares, which is a bit of a tense aspect. So when we're talking about a square, just be a bit more aware of that day. If tension comes up, know that this could be why, and these could be the themes that you're invited to figure out. You'll hear about it in a bit. And then we talk about planets shifting signs. And yeah, and we'll talk about the new moon and the full moon. And the new moon is actually an eclipse. So that one will be interesting. I'm super excited to hear your thoughts, Thea. So currently, today, which is September 26th, as we're recording this, we have North Node in Aries, Chiron in Aries, Eris in Aries. Uranus still retrograde in Taurus, Jupiter in Gemini, currently direct when we start the month. Mars in Cancer. Today we have Moon in Cancer, but by the time we start the month, we will have Moon in Virgo. We have Vesta in Virgo. And then there is a nice little parade going on over here in Libra. We have Mercury and Sun and South Node and Lilith and Juno. So that's quite a bit. Lilith and Juno Those are asteroids. We will talk about them more through this episode. Thea, I really want to start incorporating the asteroids a little bit more. So if you ever, have a feeling to throw them in, please throw them in. And then we have Venus in Scorpio, Pallas Athena in Sagittarius, Ceres in Capricorn, Pluto still retrograde at 29 degrees of Capricorn, Saturn still retrograde in Pisces, and Neptune still retrograde in Pisces. So Neptune is at 28 degrees of Pisces. So that's the tail end of the chart. We have Neptune, and the first thing we see in the beginning of the chart is the North Node in Aries. So we have made a whole circle. That is where we are as we are beginning October. And on the first day of the month, we have a cazimi. We have Mercury and Sun dancing together. We have Mercury in the heart of the sun, and they're both in Libra. How do you feel? I don't know why I just said Libra that way. How do you feel about this cazimi, and what's like what's a practical
Mhm.
way to harness the magic of a Mercury cazimi?
Ooh, every time we get a Mercury Kazimi, the most practical way I feel really is to just land in our bodies and be present to it. Because right, Mercury, it's our minds, it's how we understand things, it's how we perceive the world, and it's how we communicate. And when the sun and Mercury are together, it's like this cosmic combination of the cosmos, the whole cosmic garden, trying to communicate with you. And so, if our minds are loud and if we're chittering and we're bickering and we're doing the usual things, we may not be able to hear the subtle hints and insights that the universe is actually wanting to to receive, wanting us to receive. So on this day, I'm seeing the chart. Mars is also trine Saturn at 14 degrees, and Saturn is retrograde. So, how I'm feeling into this is how can we be open? How can we just be open to insights and discoveries? How to harmonize seemingly opposing perspectives and situations? And then follow that through with building emotional boundaries to protect our own sense of peace and home. Do you want to break that down for us, Karina? Because right, Sun and Mercury are conjunct in Libra. It's about harmonizing. It's about understanding the balance and like the opposing perspectives. And with Mars in Cancer, trine Saturn in Pisces, that can be like an emotional roller coaster. So how is this day landing for you?
Mars trine Saturn, you said?
Yeah, on the same day of this Mercury
On the
Cassini.
first.
Yeah.
Okay, so trines, you guys, are beneficial aspects. So we're talking about squares because you're going to feel the tense aspects. But we also kind of want to throw in a little bit of the beneficial aspects so that you can just play with them, see how they feel in your body. So Mars trine Saturn actually feels it brings us back to this emotional aspect and creating a home for our emotions. And what I wrote down as you were talking was how important it will be on this day to create space to listen and also to remember that we are canvases. And
Mhm.
that's what Mars and Saturn bring up for me. It's like being the canvas, being the blank slate, but also making ourselves so comfortable as the canvas, surrounding ourselves with things that will bring out the romance, the beauty. Because today I was asking the tarot cards. Okay, I haven't pulled cards in so long, you guys. We have all these tools, and sometimes we don't use any tools. Just a personal anecdote. Like, I've been feeling the feels, okay? I got to be very honest with you all. I have been feeling the feels with this Pisces lunar eclipse, and it comes and goes and comes and goes. And I've been looking outwardly for support. And today I was like, enough of this looking outward for support. Who I'm really looking for is myself. And so I got my tools. I got my Healy and I did a aura analysis. Of course, it said stuff about like my connection with my dad, of course, right? And like emotions coming up from that. And then I pulled cards from multiple different decks. And the tarot deck, I asked, what do I need to do right now? And what came out was the Knight of Cups. And the Knight of Cups to me is pretty much that. It's romanticizing our lives, not to not to bypass the times that are hard,
Mm,
but to just allow ourselves to feel more comfortable in our own presence, whether we're feeling good or bad. So that's kind of what's coming up for me for the first. So also another thing is use the tools you have. Like this month, October, use the tools you have. It's Libra season, and Libra season really asks us to have a mirror. So whether your mirror is your notebook, whether your mirror is your voice memos, whether your mirror is your best friend, whether your mirror is a bouquet of flowers, whatever it is, have a mirror, because that way I think it makes it easier to drop back into your body when so much is going on in the mind.
mm,
Because the
mm,
next day we have another Mercury aspect, and the next day the aspect is Mercury conjunct Lilith in Libra. Now, Thea, we haven't talked about Lilith yet in this podcast, I don't think much. And would you like to introduce her a little bit?
ooh. So Lilith
Actually, a
in myth.
lot bit, because Lilith can't be a little bit.
No, no, she cannot be a little bit. Lilith Biss. So Lilith in myth is the first wife of Adam. But again, this patriarchal myth that doesn't really sit well with my body. So as I tell you this patriarchal myth, I'm inviting you to feel into her story as we are living, breathing new Liliths right now here to remyth and rewild the feminine. So that's a long disclaimer. So the patriarchal story where she was cast from Eden because she didn't want to be in the bottom. She actually wanted to be on top. She didn't want to allow Adam to like just take the course as they make love. And because she didn't want to be submissive to her husband, she was cast out of paradise. Enter Eve. So Lilith in psychology, or Lilith in our psyche, as we work with it in astrology, is this dark side of the moon. Because astronomy wise, Lilith is the dark side. She is the farthest point that the moon can reach in her elliptical orbit. So as we work with that, this also points to us the darkest sides of our psyche that we may have repressed because it's too wild, it's too strong, it's too out there, it doesn't want to be submissive. So, where Lilith is in your chart shows you this dark aspect of the feminine, the wild feminine that is seeking expression, not repression, although it has been suppressed. Lilith, where Lilith is, transit Lilith, like in the cosmos, is an invitation for us to look into that shadow aspect so that we may integrate more light aspects to that. So when we talk about Lilith and Libra, right, we know right away a shadow aspect of Libra can be people pleasing, can be, sacrificing our peace for the sake of the other. With Lilith there, we are being shown that there is a better way. There is a lighter way to actually bring more peace and harmony. And that is also acknowledging that we have dark and wild sides to us that are needing equal expression as, the more pleasing, meeker sides to us. That's what's coming up for me. What's coming up for you for Lilith?
Yeah, pretty much everything you said, and just honoring the dark feminine, the wild feminine, the rawest raw and the truest true. I think that's what it is at the end, because she was banished for talking about what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all kind of carry that wound that maybe if we express what we want, we will be banished too. But I think this day, the second, is an opportunity to express the rawest, our rawest desires without needing to people please, without needing to think, will this person be okay with what I say? Will that person be okay with what I say? Because all that's really important is that we're expressing ourselves in a way that feels true and primal and real without a facade. I think
Mm,
we're at the point, I mean, we're in the middle of eclipse territory. We're at the point that the cosmos are like, enough with this facade. Be who you really are. Spend time with yourself to find out who you really are. And then on this day, declare it. Maybe you're not declaring it outwardly. Maybe you're declaring it to one of your mirrors, like we said. And actually, on this day, the moon is also going to be in Libra. So, moon will probably come meet this conjunction going on,
mhm,
which just, I think, allows us to become in right relationship with ourselves.
mm,
I think there has been a lot of tension with ourselves since the beginning of Libra season, because Mars has also been in Cancer, and they're squaring each other, and squares are tense, and so we're like, wait, this is who I feel emotionally, but this is how I'm supposed to be presenting myself to the world. So on the second, it's like, no, 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 no. How I feel is how I'm going to show up.
mhm,
And it's also like becoming aware of, mm, is how we feel real or is it momentary? Because just
mm.
before this, we were talking about emotions and how sometimes, emotions are not real. Sometimes they just come to play. So yeah, how about you? What are you getting for this Mercury conjunct Lilith?
There's actually already a build up to the eclipse the next day. We have that congregation. So we have a stellium in Libra, we have Sun, we have Moon, we have Lilith, we have Astrea, we have Mercury, and then we have Juno. And they're all in Libra and they're all conjunct. And I think it's so beautiful what you said, and I totally resonate with that. That lands with me. Just being in right relations with everything. Juno is there. That's the goddess of sacred marriage. Astrea is there. So Astrea in myth, her story was she is the last of the goddesses to leave the earth. She left the earth because it just became too dense. Men, hate, and greed became too dense. And when she left, that was the end of the golden age. And the Libra archetype is actually represented by Astrea because she is this goddess of loving kindness, of charm, and beauty. And the invitation, I really feel like the loudest invitation for the solar eclipse with Lilith there is to acknowledge where we are needing to embody more of these goddesses so that we can anchor and we can bring in peace and the new golden age. And I mean, Lilith, we have suppressed that wild primal urge for the longest time. And in that way, we kind of tip the balance to the more logical, rigid, practical measuring side, where we are dissociating or disconnecting from the primal and the wild is also where we have been disconnecting and disassociating from nature or our true nature. And I think this is about time. With Venus, I also see Venus sextile Ceres in Capricorn, Venus in Scorpio, and Ceres in Capricorn feels to me like we should end the story. We should, or at least reframe the story of how we think when we save nature. We are separating ourselves from it. We are nature. Nature is us. And so, this connection, this inherent abundant fertile connection that we have with everything around us is like what mirrors, right? You said mirrors. What we do to the other, we do to ourselves. And so how might we investigate all the ways we have been dissociating from all parts of us so that we can come back in that sacred right, like sacred reciprocity that I need this right relation with everything. How about you?
Yeah, and actually, the solar eclipse is on the 3rd at 2:49 a.m. It's 10 degrees 3 minutes. So you're right, it is a buildup, and it like this solar eclipse is gonna be happening likely when we're sleeping, if we are actually able to sleep, and if this energy is not keeping us up through a new moon. And yeah, I totally resonate with everything you said. And if you guys are like, hey, I want to get to know Wild Woman deeper, go listen to my episode with Nikki. If you're like, hey, I want to associate with the goddesses, go listen to my episode with Coral. Like, all of these are available for you. I have about 50 something podcast episodes now. So go listen. We have resources. And I want to talk a little bit more about Juno because we know her as the goddess of marriage, but isn't she also the goddess of fertility and the goddess of justice? And also, like, to me, she has very similar energy to Lilith. It's like standing up for what you believe in, standing up for what's right. Like, yes, sure, she was married to Zeus, but she was married to Zeus, right?
Yeah.
Zeus. Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm saying the right person's name. So she was married to Zeus, but she's also known to be Zeus's sister. So we don't really hear the side of the woman very often, but imagine how she had to stand up for herself to be married to Zeus. Come on. So I can imagine that Juno has this really big presence, this really big owning, like the right of being a feminine, which
Mm.
is like a feminine woman, like the right of being a woman, the rite of
Mm.
passage. Like this is Juno as well. Um, and this solar eclipse, I mean, what do we say? New moon's on steroids. So like it's a new moon with so much potential for harmony, for grace, for beauty, for stepping out of mechanisms that have been keeping us small, for honoring all parts of ourselves, for honoring the relationships that feel right in our body, for honoring our body.
Mm.
Like Virgo is still very loud, and my mind is really quickly jumping into Vedic astrology, where it's usually one sign before. So
Mm.
it's quite possible that this is happening in Virgo in Vedic astrology, and that's all about our bodies and our digestive systems. And like like you said, like we are not separate from nature. And something that I want to bring in that we talked about in heart space was compassion versus empathy, and we were talking about the difference between compassion and empathy, and how with empathy sometimes it has this feeling of like we're taking on too much, it's too heavy, we can't do it anymore because we're um literally honoring the other person's experience and believing what they're saying, but in that process we're kind of putting ourselves there to feel what they're saying. Whereas with compassion, it's about allowing the spotlight to be on the other person, but then
Mm.
without putting the spotlight on ourselves first, without having that compassion practice with ourselves first, we can't really have it with anyone else. um so again, also this invitation to just come back to love. Venus is the ruler of Libra. Um, and wait, sorry, what I was going to get at there, because I lost my train of thought. What I was going to get at there was you were saying how we can't separate ourselves from nature. And what I wanted to bring up was when we're talking about compassion, the main thing is we're talking about shared humanity. So I think in extension, for having more compassion for ourselves, we are going to end up having more compassion for nature within and without. And part of nature is other humans. We naturally soften when we see somebody having a hard time, because we naturally soften when we see ourselves having a hard time. But then again, with Mars and Cancer, I think it's a lesson. It's learning how to do this, right? We're not so used to it. But you said Saturn trine Mars on the first day of the month. So maybe this is an invitation to open up to that, to be softer, to be more, not more demure, but maybe more delicate with our feelings.
Mm.
Honor that it's okay to be soft. And
Mm.
actually, it's a superpower in itself.
Mm.
So moving on to the 6th of the month, unless you want to say anything else about the solar eclipse, do you have more to add?
No, I think that's beautiful. I think everything is beautiful. Return to love, sacred reciprocity, compassion, and empathy. We're good.
Okay, so then we'll go into the 6th of October where we want to talk about a square. And the square is between Mercury in Libra and Mars in Cancer. How is it feeling? I just felt a bit of constriction in my like heart space when I said that. How is it feeling for you? What is a practical tip to not feel the constriction in our heart space?
Well, okay, maybe we can zoom out and mention and look at the signs that they're in, right? So Mercury having just come from that energy, that conjunction from the solar eclipse, and then it meets with a tension with Mars. Squares are actually creative tensions because in Mars, we're learning emotional resilience. We're learning how to navigate our emotions and also protect our emotional space. But with Mercury and Libra always wanting to, or at least always directed towards peace and harmony, we might use this square to actually like what's coming to me is still a reflection or um a reverberation of the energy from when we started the month and when we had that Mercury Kazini where we may be receiving insights. So what insights did we receive from the eclipse? And usually when we get a solar eclipse, it's a beginning of something new because it's a new moon, so it's a big beginning. Although it's a south node eclipse, so there is also an element of an ending or a separating from something. So what insights or like what ways, like how might you communicate your boundaries such that you are in a way you're not keeping the peace, but you're keeping your peace, right? We talked about compassion and we also talked about empathy. Sometimes to be compassionate is to also suffer with someone, but it doesn't mean that we are taking over or we are being responsible for that other's suffering. Part of the lesson of Mars in Cancer is being able to build the sense of self agency and self sovereignty when it comes to our emotions and how the emotions is being in relationship, like Libra with another person, right? I can be so clear with myself that I am okay, although I am empathizing with your feelings. So, what's coming to me is how might we not enmesh ourselves with some other's feeling, or how might we not feel like we are responsible for what the other person is feeling and just mean what we say and say what we mean. We were talking about our truth, right? And speaking from our primal truth. Sometimes it ruffles feathers, but after the ruffling and after the rubble has settled, we will begin to discover a new layer of security, which is also a Mars theme, like a new layer of security and a new layer of boundary and a new layer of peace that we may not have seen or we may not be able to see if we're too scared to ruffle feathers and speak our minds truthfully. This is coming.
I think artists at the end of the day are meant to ruffle feathers because no change really comes when we do not ruffle feathers.
Mhm.
And what you were saying also reminded me that when we were talking about compassion and empathy, a key thing that sets compassion and empathy apart is compassion makes us want to act on something. Um, and so when we feel like we are getting enmeshed, how can we switch from empathy to compassion and be like, okay, this is how it feels. This is how I'm getting affected by it. How can I act on it now so that I'm alchemizing it? Because I feel like the
Mhm.
minute we act on something, it is alchemy. We are changing things. And the on this day, the moon is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is perfect for alchemizing feelings, alchemizing, yeah, I think feelings are my favorite thing to alchemize because, it's chemicals and we can make potions from them and we can develop different kinds of art, and how precious is art. And yeah, I think, these two are more similar than they're different, Cancer and Libra. Like Cancer just
Mhm.
wants to feel safe and Libra just wants to be seen. So if we can just allow ourselves to feel safe for the passions that we have, like allow ourselves to feel safe about the desires that we have, then we can also allow ourselves to be seen by other people in these things that we want to have without judgment,
Mm.
without saying this is too much. No, because Venus, right? Venus shows us we're worthy of how much ever we want. It's never too much, especially with Jupiter stationing retrograde on the 9th. So every planet stations retrograde. We have talked about this. Mercury is the most common because it happens most frequently in 1 year. Mercury retrogrades 3 times. The other planets mostly just 1 time. So on the 9th, we have Jupiter stationing retrograde in Gemini at 2120. And Jupiter is the most expansive planet, right? In the solar system. It's the biggest. It's like it just feels like wide expansion.
Mhm.
However, Jupiter stationing retrograde turns that wide expansion inward, and Jupiter also correlates with our faith, doesn't it? With our faith and trust and I don't know why, but evolution is coming up deep, especially with Jupiter in Gemini. It's
Mhm.
we cannot evolve as a species until we go within and evolve within ourselves. Like our technology is upgrading. And
Mhm.
we are capable of dealing with and handling as much technology as we are. I feel like this is like a reminder because like so much we're like, I don't want to spend so much time on my phone. I don't want to spend so much time on social media. I don't want to have these like what is it called? Electromagnetic waves coming into my system. I don't want to, there are so many things we don't want. However, with this Jupiter stationing retrograde, I feel like it's a reminder that our bodies are built. That the just the fact that we were born when we were born, our bodies are built to be able to handle this without overwhelm. And so
Mhm.
how can we sit with ourselves and plan ways to go about our lives without overwhelm? However, with allowing technology to help us, because actually that's what technology is there for. And if you're like, why the heck is Karina talking about technology? It's because of Gemini. Technology lives in Gemini, and so does communication, and so does community, and so does curiosity, and so does being a student.
Mm.
And so maybe as Jupiter is retrograde, you take on a new form of study. You start learning something different to enhance the way you see yourself, to enhance your relationship with yourself. And then once Jupiter stations direct again, you kind of like use this to connect with more people, to yeah, to what's the word that I want to use? Uh, network, to network. Okay, how is Jupiter feeling for you?
So this Jupiter retrograde, I'm seeing it is sextile Chiron and it's trine Mercury in Libra. So Chiron is the archetypal wounded healer. I think we talked about Chiron a lot. I don't know if you've talked about Chiron a lot in your space, but I know in our collaborations we talked about Chiron and Aries a lot. And this point reminds us of the eclipse in April. So with Jupiter going retrograde, there's a lot of information that may have revealed itself the past months that is making itself more clear to you around your wounds and your trauma and how you've been communicating them. And what's coming to mind is this term trauma bragging. I think with all the information and the access to information that we're getting, we somehow are receiving some permission slips to brag about our trauma. How might we reframe that in such that we can communicate from the space of our trauma, from the space of this awareness of our trauma, but start actually reassessing what meanings, what beliefs, what inner dialogues have we been using to associate ourselves, our purpose, our sense of worth, and our values to that trauma story? So that the next time we talk about our trauma, we're not bragging about the story of the trauma, but actually that we are still the hero or heroine rising from that trauma. We are not identifying ourselves with our trauma, but we are acknowledging that this event, this story that we came up with for our trauma is making us who we are now, more brave, more compassionate, more in love with our life. Hopefully, that is the story and that is the thread. That is the spirit of this whole Jupiter retrograde um feeling for me. And also with Moon, as you said, in Sagittarius, we can expand the bounds of these stories and these meanings and these beliefs that we have inherited and we have allowed ourselves to attach meaning to. And so there's such beautiful opportunity to just integrate so many dissociated parts. I think we talked about dissociated parts in the solar eclipse. It's reverberating and being pushed, being expanded, being blessed by Jupiter, right? Jupiter is also the planet of luck and abundance. So yeah, I think this is such a juicy time, especially like right after that, we get so many other aspects that also point towards positive alchemy. And I don't mean to like bypass the dark when I say positive alchemy, but there's just October is just so super ripe for alchemy, transformation, and change for the better.
And if you're wondering, how did Thea start talking about trauma and where did that come up? It's Chiron. So Chiron is wounding. Chiron is our inner wounds. Chiron is an asteroid um, that pertains to the inner wounds that we hold, childhood wounds, especially that it's in Aries. And a sextile is a positive aspect, actually. So Jupiter is in a positive aspect with Chiron. So we have, as Thea was saying, this ability to change our beliefs about trauma, to change our beliefs about the triggers that land with us, to change our beliefs from what they were when we were children, because we're full grown adults now. If you're listening to this, you're an adult. You know, if you're able to understand what we're saying, you're an adult. And as we become adults, we got to start taking more accountability of the beliefs we're holding, the values we're clinging to, what we share about, what we talk about. Not to say there's anything wrong in talking about anything, but we also got to be accountable for what we say, you know?
Mhm.
Like if we say something and someone's like, hey, you said this, we can't be like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. We gotta be like, yeah, I said that. I said what I said. So then on the 12th, we have Pluto direct in Capricorn. Holy guacamole. This is happening at 29 degrees and 38 minutes. It looks like it's really dark, so I can't really see, but it looks like
2938, yeah.
yeah. Okay. So Pluto, oh, you guys, Pluto has been dancing and dancing and dancing. And this is the last time in our lifetime that these next couple weeks is the last time in our lifetime that we're gonna have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. And then for the rest of the year, is it? We're
Mhm.
gonna have Pluto in Capricorn. And then like for like once and for final time, we're gonna have it enter Aquarius.
Mhm.
Finally enter Aquarius, and this brings a whole new energy. But again, Pluto is like a bigger moving planet. It takes longer to feel the effects, so it won't be like Pluto's in Aquarius, boom, everything's changing. No, it's gonna be super slow. And go listen to September. We were talking about this decaying, this slow decaying, and this is very much the energy of Pluto and Capricorn. So
Mhm.
maybe once Pluto stations direct, we're going to start seeing things that have been breaking down behind closed doors. Like we're going to
Mhm.
start seeing a lot of behind the scenes come out, and we're like, where the heck did all of this come from? And for the most part, it's not really in our individual lives, right? It's more of a collective thing because it's a bigger planet. But just be open to witnessing what has changed, what has transformed, and be open to the muck, I think, is what I want to say with Pluto stationing direct. Because just imagine the energy of like pushing things in, pushing things in, pushing things in, pushing things in, all of a sudden it goes during like it's all gonna come out. And that's not to say that it's bad, it could be good. There could be good things that come from it, but it's like just become aware that this is a planet that's responsible for transformation and birth and death and decay, coming out of moving backward, um, appearing to move backward, to move forward again, and then very soon switch signs. So this is a very transitory, is that a word? Transitory. It's like a
Yeah.
very transitioning,
Transitional.
transitional. But I like to make my own words here, as we know. But it's a very transitional phase, that it's like, I'm here, I'm not quite here, I'm there, but I'm not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
How can we practically harness this Pluto moving direct energy?
Ooh, was that a question for me? Um, I this is something that we will gradually be building up and attuning into, especially as the personal planets will be hitting Pluto as it stations direct throughout the month. But all I can say is, my gosh, we're wrapping up this transformation and rebirth that has been happening since 2008. And with Pluto and Capricorn, that has a lot to do with our structures, our systems, our rules, our traditions, our lineage, our family, our ancestry. There's just so much stuff. And it's not as a generational planet. The energy, it doesn't stop. The evolutionary journey, the decay doesn't stop. It's a continuous buildup that we are trying to incorporate. It's a continuous energy that we are continuously trying to alchemize. So I feel like the best way that we can work with this energy is to just be gentle and compassionate with ourselves as we allow the muck to arise, to be so super gentle with ourselves as we, in varying degrees, emerge from our cocoon or at least retreat into our cocoon. It can be different for each and every one of us, depending on what 29 degrees of Capricorn is touching. This is a transgenerational planet. So I work with a Y degree. I work with like a 10-degree orb when it comes to Pluto and it comes to Neptune and Uranus. So give yourself, like, if you have planets within 20 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, so that's Capricorn, Libra, Cancer, and Aries, please be gentle with yourselves. And when anything arises, as with everything Pluto, we face the fear because Pluto actually points the finger towards fear. And what faces of fear are coming up for you? And how might you, again, exercise compassion so that you can take aligned, inspired action after this revelation? Is what's coming to
I'm thinking about Nina Simone because that was our last poetry class,
me. Mm.
and about how she sings about, like, with such freedom, yet she's not free, right?
Mm,
As
mm,
a Black woman at that time, she's not free, and she sings about, like, she wonders what it would be to be free. But we actually, as women, we see her being free on a stage just by claiming her voice.
mm,
And just what this is bringing up with me is just, how can we be more intentional about how we use our voice? And maybe this is for me personally, because I'm noticing that Pluto is directly opposite my Mercury at 29 degrees of Cancer. So this is really changing the way I communicate, the way I express myself. And all of you in this podcast, you know this because you've been listening to me for a while. You hear the way I talk change. You hear the way um, the conviction changes. I had someone watch one of the moon circles, like a glimpse of one of the moon circles that we did. I think maybe one of the reels that you posted, and that was what, 3 years ago now, and they were like, wow, you sound so different, you sound so much more sure of yourself. And I'm like, that's what happens with growth, right? And it's so cool that we have this space to track our
mm,
voice and to track our growth. And so, to everyone listening, record a voice note to yourself, like, just go into your voice memos and just do it and describe yourself. Who are you right now? And I think it would be so cool if 1 year from today you go and listen to this voice note of who you are right now, not to know what you said about who you are, but to listen to the quality of your voice, listen to how you've opened up, because we evolve, like you said, like decaying is an ongoing process. And if decaying is an ongoing process, so is evolution, right? And so
Mhm.
with Pluto, we're constantly evolving. And so, yes, things are ending, and there is fear, and there is, all these things that we can be like, woe is me, and gosh, life sucks about. But the remembrance that we can hold both ends of the spectrum. We can honor our fear and allow it to be our teacher, and then be like, actually, I'm free and I can do whatever the heck I want. This is my life. As
Mhm.
is that Mimi?
Yes.
As Mimi like just walks by and she's like, yeah, I can do whatever the heck I want. It's with this Libra season, like it's so much about honoring the polarity and honoring the duality, and even more so because Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini. Libra talks about these two sides and the scales, and Gemini talks about dualities. So it's really in our face, with the elections, with everything going on, with like it doesn't take a lot to see and to know how much separation and polarity is going on in the world right now.
Mhm.
And as above, so below, we're seeing it. And we can't see how it's going to unfold. We can see what's happening, we can get clues into what's happening, but only free will and human nature will show us how it's going to unfold. um, anyway, before we get too far into that, let's move on to the 13th. And on the 13th, we have Mercury. Well, I guess this will actually pull it through and you can
Yeah.
just go into it as well. But we have Mercury in Libra squaring Pluto and Capricorn. And Pluto, for this aspect, like this is the first aspect that Pluto is making after stationing direct with Mercury. So it's so quickly being like, hey, let's communicate this, but there is tension. Go into it.
Yeah. So I really like what you said to record a voice note because right after that, Mercury enters Scorpio. So, right when Mercury is wrapping up its Libra journey, which is all about keeping the peace, understanding my side of the equation, understanding the polarities, it meets up with Pluto, and it's the first aspect that Pluto receives as it goes direct. And remember, we have this overarching hum with Jupiter in relationship with Chiron and in relationship with Mercury. So we have a lot of Mercury this October. I mean, we're starting the month with a Mercury Kazimi. So there's really a lot to do with how we understand things, how we communicate things, and how we perceive things, right? And I think that's such a beautiful embodied practice to notice where you are right now, notice where you were before, and of course, voice notes and even your journals. Like, how can you be your own investigator, right? Mercury and Scorpio likes to investigate. How might you investigate how you've progressed, how you've evolved, how you've decayed? Like, what changed? How did you grow? Because once we have something measurable, right, what we measure grows, where our attention goes, energy flows. If you allow yourself to give yourself that pat on the back and that congratulatory hug that, hey, you've actually grown so much, even through all the muck and confusion and whatever it is that you're going through. It's not an easy time for the world. It's not an easy time for everyone. How can you give yourself that congratulatory note of success that, hey, you've grown so much throughout the years? And yes, squares can be a tense and frustrating aspect, but it's only tense and frustrating because it's asking us to look at some other perspectives or some other creative way to relieve the tension, right? So you can check, like, where is Aries? What is Aries doing? Obviously, Chiron is there. So how can your wound open you up to soften your armor? And we also have another sign there. We have Cancer and Mars is there, right? Emotional boundaries. We've talked about this already, and emotional resilience. So all these things, if you can pile on, so like all these transits, like we go through them day by day, but they don't happen in a vacuum. because we continuously build at it. And if you can see, like, themes are already overlapping. The thing with astrology is when you see it once, you see it thrice, and it's thrice the great, right? Or Mistress Megistus, it's usually like that. So when you hear us talk about one theme, that theme will actually see itself appear as a pattern 3 more times. So yeah, it just adds more oomph. So Mercury, there's a lot to do with our minds and how we communicate. So
So
let's check to our journals.
yeah, and talking about themes, like the theme here is like big, like transformation, big transformation, because I mean, as Thea already brought in, the next day, the 14th, we have Mercury moving into Scorpio, and Pluto rules Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this, on the day that Jupiter stations retrograde, I believe the moon moves to Capricorn. So
Mm-hmm.
we have Capricorn starting to take effect. And then we have the first quarter moon in Capricorn on the 10th. And then on the 12th, we have Pluto stationing direct. And then on the 13th, we have this aspect between Mercury and Pluto. And then on the 14th, Mercury is like, okay, I've been dancing with Pluto for quite a bit. Let's dip into Pluto territory. So it's kind of like Mercury is flirting with Pluto, being like, okay, how would it feel to be in the underworld? How would it feel to be vulnerable? How would it feel to like alchemize? How would it feel? How would all of this feel? And something that I would love to offer. So I told you guys, today I went back into all of these tools that I have and went into like 5 different decks, right? So from one of the decks, there was a woman. It's called the Cannabis Oracle deck. It's so cool. The images are so trippy. But there is this one card which the invitation was, can you go on a celebration rampage today? Oh my gosh. And that made me so happy because today was such a good day. I woke up, I did yoga, I pulled my cards, I used my Healy, I did a call replay. But this day, like, I'm inviting you, can you go on a celebration rampage and write on your journal celebrating every little thing you did right? And what you'll notice is, it's not little things, because when they add up, it becomes big. And this is a good day to do it because Mercury is moving into Scorpio, and Scorpio is all about transformation. And so this is a great day to see really how much we've changed and to celebrate the change that we have moved through, because change is hard. Like, so often we're dreading change. So how about we celebrate change for like something new? And this is a great day to do it because Mercury moves into Scorpio, but also Sun is opposite Chiron. Sun is in Libra, Chiron is in Aries. But also, Sun is in Libra, also squaring Mars. And also, Sun is also trining Jupiter. So there's a lot going on. There is some
Mm-hmm.
positive aspects, there are some harder aspects. The harder aspects are not bad, they're just inviting us to look at things through a different lens. But just to clarify, Mercury is again about like our mind, our expression, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars and is ruled by Pluto. And this is deep passion. This is vulnerability, but also wanting to hide. This is very, very focused energy. If
Mm-hmm.
we choose for it to be, it can be. Scorpio has such a good focus because it's ruled by Mars. And so once we put our eyes on what we're going for, we really go for it. I feel like Scorpio and Aries are two of the most competitive signs as well. So with Mercury being in Scorpio, be aware of when competition comes in. How are you starting to compare yourself to other people? And how can you remember that your vulnerability is your superpower and you can never compare your inner world to anyone's inner world because you don't know anyone's inner world the way that you know your own inner world. What are you getting from this day? Because this day, the moon is also in Pisces.
Yep, 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 yep. It's a lot. It's a lot. I think yeah, I'm still gonna stick with what I shared earlier. And you reverberated it, and I think it's beautiful. Just give yourself that moment to congratulate yourself for all the growth and evolution that you've done. And like you said, just try to measure the good and the growth and focus there so that it organically grows, right? Pluto is still going to be in Capricorn. It's wrapping up its Capricorn journey until the 20th of October, but still, there are still some cleanups to do. And it doesn't really graduate from the Capricorn school. It only takes in what it learns from the Capricorn school and then it brings it to Aquarius. So if we can remember, because Capricorn can be like a very um how can I call this? Like a sign that's very hard set on success and determination and rigidity. But here, at least when we're giving it something to congratulate, we're giving it a formula of success or at least some form of success. We can bring that as we move into Pluto and Aquarius, which is another 20-year story. That's a tale for another time. But with that Pisces moon, that can allow us some softness, right? To remember that magic, there is magic and that we are magic. And then when we allow ourselves to just continuously notice the magic by just celebrating our growth and our journey and speaking kind and loving words to ourselves, magic can grow.
I also really like this Sun trine Jupiter aspect going on.
Mm.
Um, I
Mm.
like it a lot because on the same day that, we're becoming, or through the same time that we're becoming aware of our evolution and how we're changing, we're also being given a chance to um have a look at who we're surrounding ourselves with, and have a
Mm.
look at how our communities look, and are they reflecting that change, or are they reflecting the old version of us? Nothing wrong if they're reflecting the old version of us, but just becoming aware that to grow, we need to surround ourselves with people that are also growing. Something
Mm.
Chelsea Diane, who is the teacher of the poetry classes I go to, she says, you can't take flying lessons from people who have never left the ground. And how true is that? Like, if you want to be so big, you have to surround yourself with people that are so big. And why I'm bringing this in is Sun is in Libra and Jupiter is in Gemini, and these are both air signs. And that just makes me think of like expansion. How big can we get in our evolution? That's if I had to sum up this day in one question, it would be that. How big can we get um, in our evolution? Because that's really what this day is about. It's transformation, it's growth, it's recognizing that we're no longer our child selves. It's taking accountability for being adults, it's taking accountability for our emotions, and then it's bleeding into the next day where we have Venus opposite Uranus. So Uranus is in Taurus, Venus is in Scorpio. Both of these to me are about safety and security, where in Taurus it's about physical safety, in Scorpio it's about emotional safety. How safe do we feel to really be vulnerable, right? So yeah, what's the message for the 15th, and how can we practically use this?
I feel like, because right after this opposition, Venus will be trining Neptune. So, energies are of oppositions are actually an energy of Saturn, and the invitation here when we get oppositions is to find the balance, right? To find the in between, but also find where you're defending just one over the other. And while Venus is in Scorpio and Uranus is in Taurus, what's loud to me here is values, like you said, values and security. As we reassess the communities that help us grow, as we reassess the habits and the thought patterns, the beliefs, the laws and the structures that support us in wanting to grow big, here we may find some sense of tension again and some sense of insecurity because with that bigness comes change, and with that bigness comes some values that are needing readjustment, or some values or resources that are just needing to be reorganized, or what is a reword, recategorized or reassigned to some other area of your life. And it can be a disruptive time. It can also be a very surprising time if we just allow ourselves that spaciousness to find again, that liminality and that in between. But I see here that it's a buildup. It's a continuous buildup because right after Venus opposes Uranus, it's going to trine Neptune, which is a supportive energy of again finding magic and finding faith and surrender and beauty and art. And then it's going to sextile Pluto before we get that super moon in Aries. So what's coming to me and what's landing in my body again is allow yourself spaciousness to meet with your fear and greet your fear hello so that it shows you the door to where your magic can even be more expansive and you transcend, right? And I talk about transcendence a lot. And when I say transcend, I don't mean like poof, go to another dimension. No. When I say transcend, it's just ending the trance of fear. So talk to our fear, say hello, greet it by its name, and allow it to show you the door where you can find new expansive layers of magic and security that you've never allowed yourself to experience before.
That makes me think about how shadows are just shadows because we haven't turned the light on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that. I love that, like making friends with your fear. Hey, maybe a practical tip for today could be dance with your fear. Put on a song that makes you feel like you are owning your life, or put on a song that makes you like really scared, one or the other, and just jump. You know, something I really like to do is when I feel like, I don't know if this is applicable, but this is what's coming up for me. When I feel like things are feeling kind of stuck or like I don't want to do something that involves being vulnerable, I really like to walk. So, an example is the last episode that I released on this podcast was actually with Lex, and we both talked about losing our dads and our grief journey. And man, I felt so vulnerable. I don't think I've ever felt that vulnerable on this podcast because more often than not, I'm asking the questions and not necessarily sharing my whole life story, right? So I was like, oh my God, I don't even know if I want to share this episode. And then the other day before editing it, I went downstairs and I had it in my ears and I went for a walk. And I thought it was so nice to show my mind and show my body, hey, this happened. You're listening to and recollecting that this happened, but you're also physically moving forward, showing your body
Mm-hmm.
that you can move forward. So that's why I'm saying like maybe jump around or dance because even though you're feeling the fear, even though you're like, even though at that point I was feeling like overseen, you know, I love to be seen, but I was feeling like overseen. I was like walking through it and being like, it's okay. You know, it's okay to feel that way because actually this gives more people permission to express their stories. This allows more people to feel seen in their experiences. And what's wrong with that? So, yeah, an invitation for the 15th to either dance or walk or run or like get in your body about it because
Mm-hmm.
Taurus is in, I mean, Uranus is in Taurus and Uranus likes to shake things up. So let's literally shake our bodies and our
Bodies.
vessels up. So that's a lot, actually. You said it. Venus is doing all of these things right before the right
Mm-hmm.
before the full moon. The full moon is just the day after that. So Venus is really busy during this time. So be aware of your relationships. Be aware of your values. Be aware of maybe where you are not listening to yourself and not prioritizing your own relationship with yourself, because that is going to end in resentment one way or another. On the 17th, we have the full moon. It looks like it is at 7:36 p.m. Philippine time at 24:34.
Mm-hmm.
This is orange and it's dark here, so
24.
I have no idea what this says, but it looks like it says 24 degrees and 34 minutes. Mm. Where is the node? Where's the north node?
The north node is in 6 degrees 37.
Okay, so they're pretty far, but it's the same sign. How are you feeling about this full moon? It's the first non-eclipse in a bit.
Yes, but it's a super moon. It still kind of feels like an eclipse because it's still with an orb um of the moon. Of the nodes, okay, it's actually quite a big orb, but it's a super moon nonetheless. And Chiron is still there, and all these aspects that we talked about are still there. And again, it's a supermoon. And when we get a supermoon, we were talking about Lilith. It's when the moon is opposite Lilith, we get a supermoon. And supermoons are, well, they're not full moons or new moons in steroids, but they are close because they're at least 30 to 35% bigger, closer, and brighter. And it's this is a release. This is a completion. We are getting the full moon of the Aries eclipse that we got on April. And we were actually leading up to this moment already with the Jupiter retrograde. And we were talking about how it hit this degree where Chiron was, and it was very close to the moon, and it was close to the eclipse, and it was close to the Mercury retrograde and Chiron in April. So, what came up for you in April that is now reaching a head or a fullness or a culmination? And how might we just sit with that? Because that information isn't just there to just be there, right? We were talking about compassion and taking action. And Aries has a lot to do with courage to take aligned, inspired action. And we have such beautiful opportunities having just come from an eclipse portal to, when I talked about transcendence, right? Finally end a karmic pattern or a sticky situation or a dynamic that has been lingering that we have been wanting to outgrow for a while. And this full moon is giving us all the juice. And ideally, we are able to harness the courage and the self agency and the will and the drive to do something else, to change for the better, right? We've been talking about Uranus and all this change and all this shakeup. How can we take that shakeup energy further and create new pathways, create new patterns that are more aligned, more inspired, that can bring us more into magic because we're moving into a north node in Pisces after all this Aries action, is what I'm receiving. We also have Sun conjunct Juno on that day. But um yeah, and we already talked about right relations, right? We This is, I think, just now harnessing the courage to really forge that path of sacred reciprocity, right relations with ourselves foremost, so that we can just live more aligned and have a more harmonious, balanced life, is what I'm receiving.
I feel like it's a call to entrepreneurs because as an Aries, that it's the first sign of the zodiac, it's a trendsetter, it begins things. And, it's so often that we feel that we're so big and that we can't be put into boxes. And I think it's a reminder that if you feel this way, if you feel so big and if you feel like you cannot be put into a box, it's because you are here to share something. You have a very important message to share. And take the plunge. Like this Aries full moon. Yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
Aries full moon. It's like, hey, take the plunge, it started in April. You've been thinking, you've been teeter-tottering. Things have been in talks, things have been in thoughts. How about now you just go for it and be daring and, just own the courage. And it may not work out. You may fail. Aries is the baby. Aries will fail at one point or the other again and again. And let the failing be a lesson to just keep going, because call to entrepreneurs, because that's the kind of person that will keep failing and failing and failing until you finally succeed. And that's something I'm learning a lot, like from turning this, like this was starry vibes, it was a passion project, and now it's Karina the Heartist, and now we're doing Cosmic Heartist, and we're making it more of a business, and I'm turning into an entrepreneur. If my dad was here, he would be so freaking proud, and I know he still is so freaking proud. Um, Yet it's not an easy journey. Oh my God, there are so many, there are so many moving parts. There is so much need for accountability. There is so much need for, sucking it up and being like, I don't care how it turns out. I'm just gonna do it because this is what my moral compass is telling me to do. This is where my passions lie, and this is what feels good in my heart. And
Mm,
remembering that it doesn't need to be that serious, right? It's Aries. You can play. It can be fun. It can be, you know, light your butt on fire or something like that. Spark your bum with some ideas that you just don't want to sit anymore. You want to get up, you want to do
mm,
things. To me, that is the energy of this whole month because we start with a solar eclipse. It's like, hello, good
mhm.
morning, you're alive. What are you doing with your life? And then we get the full moon and it's like, okay, you're still playing, like you're still playing small. Can you please own up to it? And if we are not owning up to it, I feel like there will be a call to action, especially considering that the next day Venus moves into Sagittarius. What are you getting with Venus and Sag? And just like a beginner lesson, Venus is beauty, love, relationships. Um, we can also see abundance in some way.
Mhm.
We can see luxury more than abundance. Abundance we can see in Jupiter, but I feel like we can see luxury in Venus and yumminess. Yumminess is Venus. How are you
Mm.
feeling with? I just want to say, because I said yumminess, this feels like being adventurous with our taste buds and like trying new food.
Yes, I
New
was gonna
drinks,
say.
putting ourselves in the way of things that we don't usually put ourselves in the way of to appreciate beauty more, to appreciate the world more. Sagittarius
Mhm,
is travel and culture. What are you
mhm.
feeling?
The same, totally. And I'm seeing the chart that it's actually the same day that Pluto finally moves a minute. So Pluto normally moves a minute every 2 to 3 days, but since it's retrograde and it kind of still moving slow and it's taking its cosmic coffee, it hasn't moved a degree for the past 10 days. And this is the first this is the first official movement of Pluto moving into Aquarius, and with Venus entering Sagittarius, what value systems, like Venus always, it rules our values, it rules our relationships, and everything is a relationship, like our life is a relationship, it's an interbeing. And with Sagittarius, Karina mentioned something about being more playful, being more open to exploration. The ruler of Sagittarius, Jupiter, is retrograde and it's going inward. So, how might you just use this day to explore? Okay, like experiment. What recipes, what things that give you pleasure, like you said, what value systems can you explore and experiment, because we're talking about change and we're talking about transformation, and oftentimes when we're right within the cauldron and the soup, nothing makes sense until it does. We don't know what we don't know until we know what we don't know. And with Venus in this fiery exploratory sign, freaking experiment and see what's going to stick. Because, like what Karina said, we wouldn't know what's going to if it's going to stick if we don't try it out. And until we try it out and until we allow our bodies to experience that, we won't know. So be brave, explore new territory, try some stuff out, see what sticks.
Also, make new friends from different parts of the world.
Mm.
I think that's so much freaking fun. I have found so many friends and so many soul sisters just through Instagram and just like watching their lives unfold. It's so bomb, like when you're looking at it from, oh, I wish I was them, I wish I was traveling, that's different. But when you're just looking and like admiring and sending love and being like, oh, wow, that's how it is over there. I think that gives us so much more to work with in our own lives. It gives us perspective, it gives us beauty, it gives us things to write about, gives us things to think about, gives us things to talk about, just putting ourselves out there a little bit more. And when you said that Pluto is finally moving a little bit, a minute, you said? You say a minute? Yeah.
Yep.
It kind of feels like, do you know when a sports car's engine turns on? It's just like a really loud like
Yeah.
it's just so loud and all encompassing, and we're like, can you just freaking tone that down? It sounds like that. Like Pluto's like, all right, let's go. Are you
Revving
guys
up.
in? Strap
Yeah.
in, and we're like, oh wait, my seatbelt's not yet on, or oh wait, I haven't gotten my coffee, or oh wait, I'm wearing flip-flops. I can't drive in flip-flops. It's a sports car. Do you know what I mean? It feels like this last chance to just get everything we need. And obviously it's not that intense, and it's like prolonged, but I like to give personalities to these planets because that way we're able to just understand them so much more, right? They are like they're actors, and
Mm.
so I mean, I'm a Leo, I have to act them out, you know me. So like it feels like we're just trying to get everything we need before Pluto finally makes its way into Aquarius.
Mm.
Which, like you said, it's a continuous. It's not that we're going to leave Capricorn behind and move into Aquarius. It's integration. It's taking everything along with us, for the ride.
Mhm.
Okay, so then that brings us to the 22nd of October, where we have Sun square Pluto. This is the last day of the Sun being in Libra. So Sun in Libra square Pluto in Capricorn. Libra is all about relationships. Capricorn is all about structures and systems and earth and integrity.
Mm.
How
Mm.
do you feel with Sun square Pluto?
Mm.
Pre-Scorpio season.
Um, allow the intensity to show you where you can direct, um, yeah, where you can direct them to, and ideally they would be more empowering and more positive outlets. I feel like exercise, like a new exercise regime, is important during this day as we are wrapping up. Like this is a karmic degree of 29 degrees in Capricorn. And I feel like there has to be movement because that energy just has to go somewhere. And so ideally we direct it in a wise way so we can avoid conflict. Because usually when Pluto is there or when Mars is there is some sense of conflict, there's fear, there's a well, when Uranus is there, there's breakdown, but with Pluto especially because there are biological urges and there's scorpionic, deep psychological content that's just reaching its final completing degree. And then Sun squaring that, it's just it feels very intense. It kind of feels intense in my body. So my practical invitation for this day is to move, to shake it out, to find a creative, empowering outlet, to channel all that energy that just wants to be released and alchemized into a new project, something new. We're talking about new here. We're actually not talking about new. The moon is waning. So, like, what is wrapping up? Can we wrap it up but allow it to discharge from our bodies? Because I feel like this day we can be like holding on to tension or we can be holding on to some debris that's coming up from our deep psychological urges that just needs somewhere to go. And I feel like we had such a beautiful preparation during Mars September Cancer when we were talking about having a home for our feelings. So let's take it there. Let's take it to an art project. Let's take it to another outlet. Like just find some physical, tangible, visceral outlet to vent up and take out all this energy that's rising. That's what's coming up for
It feels like intensity coming up to be served on a platter for the sake of art.
me. Oof. I like that.
That's what I got from what you said. Like just intensity for the sake of creating beauty. And yeah. And oh, and I think you said workout, so something that feels really good is like kickboxing or boxing, but I also think that we should start that workout regime currently now if we
Mm.
haven't started. Um, and then a second option to start is the 3rd of October, which is the solar eclipse.
The new moon.
And then if you haven't started it then, by hook or by crook. Oh my God, my dad used to love to say that, by hook or by crook. By hook or by crook, please start your workout regime on the Aries full moon, because I think the intensity just starts getting louder and louder and louder. And if we are not working out, if we are not releasing it from our body, it ends up being projected to the people that are around us, and they don't deserve that. And, we also don't deserve to feel like we're getting eaten up from the inside. So have an outlet and think of it as a self care practice for yourself. Think of it as a compassionate practice for yourself. Because I think if we look at exercise in that way, oh my God, the way it will change, like, oh, this is my act of compassion for myself today. Wow. Then we're like, oh my God, I want to do it. I want to be compassionate towards myself, as compared to, I feel fat, so I need to work out. It's so different. The intentionality is so different. And don't judge yourself. If you go through the second one, don't judge yourself, because everybody goes through the whole spectrum, like, every single day, right? So just notice where you are on the spectrum, and an invitation to move your body, whether it means a
Mhm.
workout, whether it means just 10 jumping jacks a day. That's enough. That's enough to just get it start, like, just get it moving. Because I
Right.
think with Pluto retrograde, there is the potential of a lot of stagnation.
Mm.
There has been a lot of like, it's heavy, it's heavy, it's heavy, it's heavy, it's heavy, it's heavy.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now that we're like here, we need to somehow open back up. And so, what is that for you? Whatever it is, start putting it into practice on the full moon. And then on the 23rd, we have Sun moving into Scorpio, and I think that's the last thing actually that we are talking about for this month. Welcome to Scorpio season, my friends. It is transformative. It is about to be Samhain. It is about to be Halloween. The veil is so, 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 so thin. And if you do not believe me, just watch how telepathy, I think, starts becoming louder. I don't know why I said it that way. Telepathy. How do you say it? Telepathy?
Telepathy.
Telepathy. Yeah. I love it. So
Ah.
telepathy gets louder. Um, we're able to communicate with the other side louder. Um, maybe you start seeing things, maybe you start feeling things. Um,
Mm.
this is a great time to alchemize. We will see shadows come up because it is Scorpio. We will see, ourselves questioning ourselves. I think we will wonder where we belong, I think, as well. These are all themes of Scorpio. What did you see?
Just saw that the moon was in Cancer. Um, on that day
Bubble
too.
water, delicious.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hey, practical tip, get on a diving board and jump.
Ooh, that would be so pretty. Yeah, swim. I think that is an embodied tip for the day. When Sun enters Scorpio, go for a swim. Or like do some cardio as you swim. Let me see what else is on this day. Um, okay, so like just what energetically is coming up for me is celebrate death. That's literally what Samhain is, right? It's Dia de los Muertes, although it's just the Day of the Dead. This is the season. This is the solar season, the solar gateway, the mid between the solstice, the equinox, which we just had the equinox in Libra season, and the next is we're gonna have the winter solstice, which is the deepest descent of light. Samhain is the in between. It's the cross quarter day where we're being asked to celebrate death. We're being asked to celebrate the shadows and the dark because we are tipping to the darker half of the year. And the wheel of the year is now asking us to rest some more, to surrender some more, to be with the dark some more and understand and at least sit with the lessons of the shadows and sit with the lessons of the dark after all that Pluto action, after all that activity during October. This is Yeah, this is an invitation to go deep and allow ourselves to just go deep, allow ourselves to be more intense and more intentional with our intensity. My God, if you want to brood, freaking brood, but don't stay there for more than 2 minutes. Here we are with the 2 minutes again. It's a phase and a season to go goth. Maybe meditate or sit with dark colors. Like, what would it feel to be with dark colors more and wear more dark colors some more? And understand that dark doesn't always mean evil and dark doesn't always mean bad. But how have we attached bad and evil with dark and the taboo? Because it's Scorpio season. And goodness, it's my favorite season. One of my favorite seasons. How can we celebrate the taboo? How can we celebrate the dark? And I think we were leading up to this as we were talking about Lilith. How can we celebrate the wild, the primal, the suppressed, and the repressed, and allow them to rise more? Right? The time has come for the dark, feminine, wild prowess to no longer be suppressed nor repressed, but expressed fully with a light in the dark. These are what's coming up for me. And yes, swimming. Goodness gracious. Or go treasure hunting.
Oh man, so much there. There is so much there. And I think Scorpio season always has the potential for so much. It brings up a lot from beneath the surface for a lot of people. And you said brood, but don't go for more than 2 minutes. Honestly, if you want to go for more than 2 minutes, do it.
It's Scorpio season.
It's Scorpio season. And, last night I was sitting here brooding for probably an hour. Just make sure that you have a support system that can pull you out
Mm,
of it,
mm,
or set a timer or something to get you out of it, because when we get into that space, it's really hard to get out. So you have to make sure that you have someone that's checking on you and making sure um, that you're not drowning.
mm, mm,
Like set the stage for yourself, care for yourself enough to be like, hey, I'm gonna be in my feelings, I'm gonna lock myself in the room for 1 hour, please come check on me after.
mm,
Because for example, last night, like, if Navs didn't come in when he came in, I would have just sat here and cried for way longer. Instead, he came in and he was like, hey, what's wrong, and immediately, like, hug me, and I think it's so precious to have a partner that will do that for you, like, put fights aside, put couple arguments aside, put anything aside once it comes to grief, and once you're having that visceral of an expression, to have someone come and like pull you out of it. I think that is the ultimate sign of compassion and the ultimate sign of love.
mm.
Nothing compares. And if he's listening to this, thank you, Nabs, I love you. And last thing that I want to do at 6:55, so that feels like a good sign. I want to read a poem. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
So it's called On the Verbiage of Death. And you said, like, go into that death, get into our relationship with death, like, entertain it more. And I wrote this after my dad passed, and there are some references that maybe you guys won't understand. So I'll give a little bit of a briefer. Um, I mentioned a Gurdwara, and a Gurdwara is basically a place of worship for Sikhs, anyone of a Sikh religion, which is pretty close to Hinduism. So growing up, I grew up Hindu, but we also believed in the Guru Granth Sahib, which is the main book for Sikhism. And this is practiced in the Gurdwara. And when it's read on repeat, for like, if it's continuously read, the Guru Granth Sahib, it's called Akhand Path. Okay, so these are words that you're going to hear and you'll be like, what's that? Now you know what that is. Okay, so this is my poem. It's called On the Verbiage of Death. I wrote it on May 9, 2024. Whew. No, it's not a loss. It's a transition, a process of transformation, just like the shedding the snake that crossed our path on April 28 underwent. No, it's not an ending. It's a new beginning, one in a different form, like the chameleon in the Kota Kinabalu shore. Yes, it's a cause for mourning. No, it's not a reason to stop searching for joy every morning. Death is a journey which requires courage, a brave heart, not for the one embarking on the journey, instead for the earthlings who remain bound. Each of us goes through innumerable deaths through our lifetime, from one version to the next, maiden to mother and mother to crone, boy to man and man to hierophant. And while we do grieve, we do not apologize for a loss. We honor the life that has fought so hard for a little more time to breathe. Breath, as delicate as the chiffon scarf covering my head at the Fremont Gurdwara. Pulse, as holy as the Sri Guru Granth Sahib being read at room 103 after you pass at room D143 for 3 nights non-stop declaring life over your rebirth. The Akan path illuminating your own as you travel onwards to the unknown. Cardiac arrest is just a fancy way of describing a sensor that's no longer fine-tuned. May this Gurbani be the tuner for your soul. So that is how I became friends with death. And because Scorpio season, transitions, they're everywhere. And thank you for letting me read that, and thank you for listening, and thank you for holding the space. And I really wanted to read that because we are often focused on the losses that we are facing in our own lives. However, it has been a time and a year with so much transition. I've come into contact with so many people that have lost someone or the other. And if you have, you're not alone. I'm here for you. Send me a message, reach out. I'm so happy to hold space. It's such a big, like, grief is such a big feeling. It's such a visceral feeling. And the only way through it is to allow it space, as Thea was talking about with like everything Scorpio season. Like, the only way is to just give it space and allow it to be, and then move our bodies, right? If we don't move our bodies, we're going to get stuck. And this is me talking from this space of grief that I am so used to moving my body. um I think it was like 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago now, I made Nabs promise that he would get me back into shape, and he would drag my ass to the gym every day because I made him for like a full 2 years. And that like made me really into fitness and made me want to move my body. And I'm so used to wanting to move my body until May when my dad passed, and my body all of a sudden feels so when I was doing this and talking about that, I'm saying it because I feel it, it has been a lot of constriction for everybody. Um, but if you have moved through sadness and moved through grief and moved through big emotions recently, and you can't go to the gym and lift heavy, or you can't, do Zumba, here's me talking to myself as well, or you can't, just do HIIT, or you're not able to move your body in the same way, here is a reminder that it's okay, because our bodies hold it. Our bodies hold it. And until we allow soft and slow movement first, there is no way we can jump back into like such depths. And the reason I'm sharing this is I really want to go back to the gym. And every time I go to the gym, I'm sore for a whole freaking week, you guys. It's not even a joke. It's not a joke to be sore for a week. And so what I've been doing is like more yoga and more walking, and I want to get back to being fit, and I want my clothes to fit me again. But also, I'm honoring that I'm in this point in my life where I'm moving through something so big, and all I have to do is have more compassion for myself. So know that when Thea and I are talking to you about all of these movements, these are things that we're not above, we're not beyond it. We're going through it. We're in the freaking thick of it, which is why we feel like it is important to share it with you, because to us, it's a map, it's a language, it's a way to navigate what's going on. And I am so grateful that I have astrology in my life, and I cannot imagine having gone through the last 4 years of my life without knowing the astrology, without having these warning signs, without being like, oh, this could possibly happen at any time. So I'm so glad that I have it. How about you? Do you want to give an ode to astrology right now?
Oh, I do. But also, I want to give an ode to you. So much grace, so much compassion, and for showing up with everything that we're talking about, walking the talk, going through it, knowing that you're not above it, but you're walking in it and through it with it. It's beautiful to witness, and it's such an honor to witness you and to walk this path, this this astrology and share this passion for astrology with you, because like this is embodiment. This is everything that we're talking about. Yes, we're reading symbols and we're translating it and we're transcribing it. We're also human, and we're being fully in the human experience and just holding space for the fullness of the human experience. And like you said, just there's so much honor with everything that was just coming out of your being for the past few minutes. So yeah, thank you for this space. Thank you for this podcast. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for the gift that is you. Grateful for astrology because we're understanding it and giving like some sense of layer to it and being able to share it with you from an embodied space with an invitation that, you know, hopefully you get to understand it from an embodied way instead of being overwhelmed when we say, oh, Venus is doing this thing with Saturn and this degree of da 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 da. But tune into the energetic expression that we're trying to share it from and meet us in that space, right? With just a lot of spaciousness and compassion and grace for your journey, because this is a difficult time and everyone in some way, shape, or form is having a difficult time navigating it. But we have these tools and we have community, and our prayer is that you find your tool and you find your community. And hey, we're here. Karina's here. She has her heart space, expansive space. What do you call it?
It's called Heart Space.
Heart
It's
space.
called Heart Space. We redefine words and we create art, and I love it so much. We don't talk so deeply about astrology just so that it can be more all-encompassing, but I do use the astrology to pick themes that we're going to talk about through that Saturday. I find it to be such a beautiful space for anybody that creates for work. Just
Mm,
because when we create for work, we have this pressure of how to create, how we want things to look, how they have to appear, but we are artist souls, and at the end of the day you cannot constrict artist souls. So
mm,
heart space is for that. It's to just express whatever is in your heart. You don't have to share it with anyone. You can share it with us. But there is just, it's no pressure. It's just a space to drop back in, because God knows we need more places to drop back in. And Thea,
absolutely.
do you have anything running for October?
October, so the navigating constellations and psyche, embodied and integrative astrology 101 course will be on demand. Then I don't know. I'll probably brood for Scorpio season. I'm not sure yet what's going to be up in the offering, but my one-on-one soul gardening sessions are always open for you. But oh my gosh, I do encourage you to join Heartspace because it's such a beautiful container for love, for artistry, and we get to alchemize all this gunk into something beautiful. And God knows we need beauty. We really need beauty and more loving compassion in the world nowadays.
Really, really, really. Okay. To end this episode, I want to ask you a very fun question. We went on quite a bit. So if you are here listening to us, gosh, thank you for being here. We hope that you're gaining some value out of it. We definitely gain value out of it. And we go into recording these with the intention of you gaining value from it. So I'm sure, like, I don't even hope you gain value from it. I'm sure you gain value from it. I gain value every time I talk to you, Thea. So thank you for just filling my life with so many gems and so much light and so much value, and just just gosh, you're amazing. Thank you. And and okay, so my question is, so I was talking to Navs the other day and I was telling him how he's such a merman. Like, funny you were like, just go swim on that day, because that's what I was telling him the other day. He was like, should I go lift weights? But I just did cardio yesterday. And I'm like, no, but you feel so good after you swim. Just go swim. Because after he swims, as after all of us swim, like our eyes get brighter and lighter. And yeah, so I made him go swim. And I was like, you're a merman, but I'm totally not a mermaid. So then I was like, what would I be? I would be a forest fairy. That's what I am. So I want to know, what are you?
Oh gosh, it depends on the day. It depends where the moon is.
Okay, but what is your most, what are you most? Because
Oh
we're
my gosh.
all like everything, I guess, but what are you most? Or
I'm
maybe
trying
you're the
to
best.
remember what made up archetype being I said I was when we were in the car going to the night.
Oh my gosh, yes. It was like
The
unicorn, dragon,
seahorse,
mermaid,
yeah. So a seahorse with with a unicorn
unicorn horn,
horn with fairy wings
and
and
there was some
a
dragon in
dragon tail.
there. Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know Thea, Thea is multi-dimensional, clearly. You have wings, but you're also underwater, and you also have a horn.
And I'm a mammal because I'm a seahorse.
You're a mammal. You maybe also have dragon's breath. You can burn anybody that you want. Um, so yeah, guys, if you're looking for someone to have on your team, Thea is a good pick. Look at this all-encompassingness.
My mythical creature.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you all so much for being with us for another episode. We will catch you on the next one. Thank you, Thea. I love you so much.
Love you. Catch you in November.